Hi, today I'm going to go over something that's quite rare. However, if it happens to you, it's one of those, well, it's unfortunately a career apocalypse. Now, what am I talking about with a career apocalypse? That's when you work for a company that on the surface was highly prestigious and everyone in the world would have loved to work for that organization, and then it implodes and goes. Today I'm going to go over how you can avoid this, and a lot of times the signs are right in your face, so stick around till the end because I'm going to go through the pointers at the end of the things that you need to look for to avoid the career apocalypse. My own experience with the career apocalypse, fortunately for myself, it did not happen to me, but with some of my graduate school classmates in my MBA program in our second year, they were all applying for a company called Enron. Enron was a little bit different for them because they went into the interview and came back, and I was talking to a lot of my classmates that were interviewing with Enron, and they said it was a really weird interview. They were asking us all of these derivatives questions that we really didn't know the answer to, and it was really challenging because a lot of the questions they were answering would take very involved formulas, and really you would want to be working with a computer to answer the derivative questions that they were asking. So it's really confusing to them. Upon me talking to them, I was in internet strategy, and I was asking them, well, you know, the thing that strikes me as odd about Enron is that they've been talking about this broadband initiative where they're actually going to set up markets for trading broadband over the internet. So one company would buy broadband bandwidth off of another company. For logistical reasons, that made no sense to me as to why that was possible. The other even more glowing reason it wasn't possible was Unionet at the time owned 80% of the broadband throughout the United States, or owned the entire internet backbone for the most part. And in the articles I'd read about it, there was nothing that had anything to do with Unionet. So why would Unionet give Enron the ability to trade basically its commodity that it could just sell for kind of whatever price it wanted? So why would they cut Enron in the deal? It just made no sense to me. 11 people in my class got job offers. Enron was the largest employer. Kenneth Lay spoke at our graduation. That's how big and how hyped Enron was at that point in time. 7 months later, unfortunately, Enron was bankrupt, and all of my classmates that had accepted positions with them were laid off. Today I'm going to go through the career apocalypse warning signs and what those people should have been looking for. The first thing is the interview was weird. And in hindsight, you know, hindsight's always 20/20, but what was Enron really doing in that interview process? My impression now looking at it, now that I've been able to back up and see what unfolded, was that Enron was actually trying to find people that knew nothing in the situation, because the derivatives question they were asking were so complicated that no one could answer it there in the spot. And in asking those questions, they're making the person more or less think on their feet and be creative to try to see if they could kind of, I hate to say, trick their way through the questions in the interview. This made it so that I don't believe that Enron was looking to include people in the fraud. I don't think that was their intention, but there would be auditors and analysts all the time walking through Enron corporate. And if an analyst or an auditor was like, well, I'm going to just kind of touch base and ask this person about what's going on here, these would be the type of people that would render an answer back, whether they knew the answer to the problem or not, and give probably a fairly credible response to the question. It's my belief that that's what Enron's interview process is all about, finding people that could help perpetrate this fraud, being completely unknowing of what was going on. Now, the second tell was obviously that if you think about it, what was going on in the newspapers about Enron at the time with this broadband initiative made no sense. So the problem Enron had was that they could only grow revenue so much. Without this added revenue growth, they couldn't support making up higher earnings. Without higher earnings, they weren't going to be able to jack their stock price up anymore. And once this exponential growth stops, then people actually begin analyzing Enron as a true business entity. And once that happens, the house of cards is going to come down quickly. Therefore, you really need to pay attention to currently what's going on with the company. To avoid a career apocalypse, those are the two things you want to be looking out for. Now, if you're at a company, what should you be doing to safeguard yourself against the company you're working for ending up being an end run. Things that I would suggest that one do is always, it's very easy now to subscribe to the press releases for the company you work for. You can do that online, and I would read each one. See what the company's initiatives are. If possible, listen to or get the transcripts for the quarterly reports. Usually those calls are only a half hour long, but the analyst question that they're asking will also kind of key in as to whether those analysts are thinking there's something peculiar going on here or whether it's very straightforward. Also, if they have to restate earnings at all, that's a tell, because clearly they've done something where their accounting wasn't right, or if they're doing financial transactions that are a little bit odd or kind of off keel, that can be another tell. So those are the things that you need to do to protect your career and stay on top of the company you work for. Just because it's a big name or prestigious company doesn't mean that it doesn't have the capability of completely collapsing and imploding. Now, I'm not trying to freak people out or make people be overly concerned, but you should have some degree of, healthy skepticism when it comes to evaluating the company you work for, because regardless, you're married to it. Those people that worked for Enron, even though it was only 7 months, they gave up other opportunities they could have gotten right out of graduate school, and we had a wonderful career placement office that they no longer had access to because they were out of school for 7 months, and now they were basically starting from scratch trying to find a new position. And they had to come with this very difficult decision as to whether or not they wanted to include Enron on their resume, which probably, if I had to guess, most didn't. They just acted like, oh, well, I went to Europe for 7 months after graduate school and I'm back. And I know this makes no sense as to what I'm doing, but now I'm trying to apply for a job. Those are the challenges and the situations you want to never find yourself in. So there have been a fair number of high-profile failures. And when that happens, almost always those people, whether it's an accounting firm, an investment bank, or some other major collapse, the people that work in those firms then have to take a step backwards, where if you were able to kind of see it coming a little bit in advance because your subconscious told you to kind of look at things, or you're up on these annual reports and news releases of the company and things aren't making sense, well, that puts you ahead of the game because you got out before the collapse happened. Now, this won't happen for most people in their career. However, having seen it happen firsthand for some people that I knew, just always be wary, because you are sort of married to that company, that company's reputation sort of becomes your own. Hopefully you like this content. Click the subscribe button below for weekly updates that we're doing. And as always, have a wonderful day. Oh, the interview is that weird? I wouldn't worry about it.